Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Following Monday's Alberta Municipal election, we hear from the new Mayor-elect of Lethbridge, Blaine Higgin, who talks about what's next for our city. The head of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation talks about the message being sent to Ottawa as a majority of Albertans voted that equalization reform is needed. And we hear from our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, who has the latest on the 17 missionaries who've been kidnapped in Haiti.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Monday night was a roller coaster ride of emotions for Lethbridge candidates during the Alberta municipal election. Longtime City Councillor Blaine Higgin was elected Mayor of Lethbridge in a closely and heated contested race against rival Bridget Mearns. He received close to 43% of the popular vote compared to Mearns at 41%. Higgin, who was City Councillor from 2013 to 2021, says he's excited for what comes next.
The biggest thing is to sit down with the councillors and find out what goals and ideas that they have. This has got to be a team effort. You know, we talk about, and throughout the campaign, that, gosh, Blaine, there was some division here previously. We're going to have varying opinions, but it's going to be something that we need to work on our strengths and not our weaknesses. Let's get together and do what we can to better the community. That's what it's all about. If we had any issues, let's put them behind us. Let's wipe this slate clean, if you will, and let's get going forward.
The official Alberta municipal election results will be released on October the 22nd. Bridget Mearns finished a very close second in the race to become the mayor of our city, losing by just 508 votes. This is the second time Mearns has been the runner-up, losing to Mayor Chris Spearman in the 2013 election before she stepped away from politics. Mearns told Bridge City News that she's thankful for the support of her campaign team, and she's still dedicated to serving our community.
You saw how close the results were, which means so many people believed in the vision that I presented. They believed in collaboration. They believed in community. They believed in coming together to find solutions. That's what my campaign stood for, and that's what a lot of people wanted to see. So I thank them for their votes. I thank them for their dedication, and I want to continue to see that happen in our community. So tonight I thanked my mother, who has basically dedicated her entire adult life to public service. And I said she was an inspiration, and she has instilled in me a sense of public service that will never go away, and this certainly isn't going to stop that. So there's a way of servicing our community that's beyond just an elected seat. Obviously I'd rather be there, but it's who I am.
The new mayor and council will be sworn in on Monday, October the 25th. Lethbridge will also be welcoming 4 new councillors in council chambers. The new group of 8 and Mayor Blaine Higgin will serve a 4-year term. Carson Marsouk introduces us to the 4 new members of council who are set to take over the council chambers on Monday.
Following Monday's civic election, the results remain unofficial, but Lethbridge will see 4 new and 4 returning city councillors in council chambers. Former mayor and city councillor Gondek came out on top with 7.3% of the vote, winning him the top seat on council.
And I sure want to thank all of my supporters and certainly the citizens of Lethbridge for having put their trust in me and electing me to city council. So I'm looking forward to soon getting to work and doing the business of the city.
Jen Schmidt-Rempel secured the 3rd seat on council with 6.3% of the vote. Schmidt-Rempel says she plans to bring her 4-pillared platform to council, including people, services, business, and community. She says having the new council and mayor work collaboratively together is key for the city.
I think we all have the common goal of really wanting to be able to connect and work together. The last council, there's discussion around how much divisiveness there was. I really think this council is going to work to put that behind them or behind us, and we'll work together to move forward to see what we can do that's best for the residents of Lethbridge.
The new council is set to be sworn in on October 25th, which includes former police chief John Middleton Hope. He says his plan for the first council meeting is to listen to his new colleagues and create a well-rounded plan for the city.
Being the rookie, I think it would be prudent for me to listen to what the other councillors have to say, listen to what the mayor has to say. We'll carve out a direction together and we'll take it from there. And if it happens to be one of the initiatives that I'm passionate about, all the better.
With 4.8% of the vote, Nick Palladino will sit in council chambers for the first time. Palladino says he is eager to get a start on making Lethbridge a better place to work, live, and play.
First thing we need to do is start working on addressing the social issues we have downtown and throughout the city, actually. And I think we should continue to promote Lethbridge as a good place to set up business and invest in.
The official results are set to be released on Friday. For Bridge City News, I'm Carson Marsouk.
In Lethbridge, there were some local questions constituents had a chance to vote on. One is if our city should adopt a ward system. 60% of you said yes. It would be implemented by the 2025 election. Also, more than 55% of respondents voted in favor of constructing a new third bridge for the city by the year 2030. Returning officer for the election, Bonnie Hilford, says she's encouraged by the 35% voter turnout this time around and adds that the city was able to increase voter turnout by 7% since the last election in 2017. She said the city is hoping even more will come out and vote in the next municipal election in 2025.
This election saw 2 ballots, so that did take time for the voters to decide on who they're going to vote through when they were at the polls. It did take quite some time. Some people actually spent an hour deciding who they wanted to vote for. So that did slow down the process. Maybe in 2025, if there's only 1 ballot, we would see a higher turnout. But we had 14 voting stations. They were steady. Some were, up to half an hour, 45 minutes wait. So in the future, maybe we'll have more voting stations as well.
There were just over 81,000 eligible voters in Lethbridge this election, with over 28,000 ballots being cast. Now, the town of Taber will have a familiar face in council. Andrew Prokop was re-elected as mayor. He beat out Rick Papadenis and Ken Holst. During his first term on town council, Prokop served as interim mayor for 6 months, followed by a complete full term.
Basically, this will be my 3rd term on council, and I've been very fortunate to be part of 2 very proactive councils previous, and I expect to have a 3rd very proactive council as well. My 3 main focuses were deal with economic growth, so definitely more to come in that capacity, recreational enhancement and opportunities, so definitely more so in that category as well, and or priority projects or priority spending, all being fiscally responsible as well.
In Medicine Hat, Lindsay Clark became the Gas City's first female mayor, beating out the incumbent Ted Clugston. She collected more than 13,000 votes, or 2/3 of the ballots cast. Clugston received just over 4,600 votes in a bid for his 3rd term. Now here are some unofficial results from other ridings across southern Alberta. In Coaldale, Jack Van Ryn was elected mayor. In Claresholm, the incumbent Doug McPherson lost out to Chelsea Petrovic. In Fort Macleod, the incumbent Brent Fader was acclaimed as mayor, and in Cardston, incumbent mayor Maggie Cronin was re-elected. Calgary has elected its first female mayor. Jyoti Gondek replaces longtime mayor Naheed Nenshi, who decided not to seek another term. Gondek served as a city councillor in Calgary for 4 years and has championed public transit, police reform, and city growth during her term. In Edmonton, meanwhile, former Liberal Cabinet Minister Amarjeet Sohi defeated 10 other candidates to become Edmonton's first mayor of color. He takes over from Don Iveson, who served 2 terms but did not seek another. Now, one of the questions on the municipal election ballot was if we should reform the equalization formula. Well, 59% of you in Lethbridge said yes. In fact, the majority of Albertans agreed. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation says equalization payments this year alone will cost an Alberta family of 4 around $2,600. Franco Terrazzano is the federal director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Franco, what does this vote mean moving forward?
Well, the first thing that we need to see here is that it's pretty clear that Albertans sent a clear message to Ottawa and the rest of Canada that they are tired of being treated like the cash cow. So now the onus is on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Premier Jason Kenney. Trudeau needs to be picking up the phone, calling Premier Kenney, calling the other premiers in Canada, and start getting the ball rolling on fixing equalization. And it's also on Kenney. Kenney needs to make sure that happens, and he needs to make sure that he's fighting for fairness for Albertans with Ottawa and the rest of Canada.
Will the Trudeau Liberals even care about how the majority of Albertans want to see the equalization formula reformed?
I think it's absolutely in their best interest to care about how Albertans voted and to listen to Albertans' demands. I mean, there are some very, very legitimate grievances going on in Alberta. And if Trudeau cares about a strong and united Canada, then he's going to take this message seriously.
Thanks so much, Franco. That was Franco Terrazzano, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Ottawa. The owner of a Filipino grocery store in Lethbridge was awakened Monday morning to a phone call from police who said his store had been broken into. Idle Endigan says security camera footage shows his shop Y3 Filipino store was broken in around 2 o'clock in the morning. Endigan says this is not the first time his business has been targeted in the 1 year that his store has been open.
We actually had a break-in last Halloween. We were still open, and one of my cashier actually was here working. AST was still closed then, but some guy that's drugged up and stuff, came in here, wrecked everything basically, and scared my cashier, and then she ran out basically, right? And then we called the cops. Good thing it was settled. I think he spent some time in jail now, but we have those often where people just come in and then it scares the customers and whatnot.
Endigan says over $700 worth of cash and merchandise were taken. The Lethbridge Symphony Orchestra performed their first show in almost 2 years on Monday night. As Micah Quinn explains now, fans of brass, string, and woodwind instruments finally got a chance to hear the symphony at the Southminster United Church.
Glenn Clausen took over the directorship of the Lethbridge Symphony Orchestra in 2003. He says he got the itch for conducting when he was finishing high school. On Monday night, he was once again conducting, and the orchestra played a show called Series 1 Striking Rhythms with Adam Mason. The last time the orchestra performed together in front of a live crowd was close to 2 years ago.
The concert we're doing, Striking Rhythms, is actually the one that we were planning on doing, and it got canceled like 3 or 4 days before the concert was to take place. So we are so excited that we are able to, it's almost like deja vu. We're just kind of leapfrogging skipping over the last 18, 19 months, and here we are. So feeling very fortunate that we've been able to rehearse and make music again.
Clausen says the orchestra didn't perform online during their downtime, which would have required him to conduct.
We as an organization certainly were not in a position to have, first of all, the finances in place to do that, nor did we have the expertise in-house to deal with those kind of issues either. So the thing going, doing something online, we left that to some of the larger professional orchestras around the world to do that.
You can visit the Lethbridge Symphony Orchestra's website to find out more information about the group and their upcoming shows. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
The University of Lethbridge has released a new campus bird checklist as a way to get the community involved and explore local surroundings. Master's student Samantha Krause helped with the initiative, documenting over 135 different species of birds at various times on campus. The team used an eBird software to document and keep track of the sightings throughout campus. Krause says the project has been in the works for several months.
Lethbridge has 4 seasons-ish, and there are different birds in each season, and even the same birds will look different in each season. So if you really want to see bright, beautiful, colorful variety, then go out in the spring. But I love chickadees, and chickadees are here all year round, and they're very friendly in the winter. So it's a good time to go birding any season in Lethbridge.
Krause says she's eager to grow the birding culture in the city, as it's a way to get more people on campus excited about the natural setting that invites these varied species. You can find the checklist by visiting the University of Lethbridge website. The province announced its latest COVID-19 numbers for Alberta. Our Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Dean Henshaw, says there are now 981 people in hospital battling the virus. Henshaw says of the 756 non-ICU patients, 72.5% are unvaccinated or partially vaccinated. Of the 225 in the ICU, close to 91% are unvaccinated or partially vaccinated. Across the province, there are 12,301 active cases, including 1,300 here in the South Zone. Fortunately, more than 301,000 Albertans have also recovered from COVID-19. The Saskatchewan government says it is asking Ottawa for help in dealing with surging COVID-19 cases. The province is sending 6 intensive care patients to Ontario to relieve overwhelmed staff. Health officials said the first patient was to go to Ottawa, and the other 5 will be transferred on Wednesday.
We will also today be asking for additional resources from the federal government staff that can work in our ICU settings. And while we appreciate any help that the federal government can provide, we are also quite realistic, and that this will likely not be a large number of staff, but it will be a very specialized grouping of staff that will be required.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau flew to BC on Monday, paying his respects at the site of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School, where more than 200 unmarked graves were found last spring. Flanked by Indigenous leaders, Trudeau said healing happens when real action is taken to make amends.
To the survivors who shared their powerful, moving, heartbreaking stories, I have heard you. To the families, to this community, I am listening to what we need to do and to make amends as a country. Earlier today, I went with Gukbi Kesmir to pay my respects to the graves of the Lesquay, the children who went missing. No child should ever have been taken from their home and forced into the residential school system. No child should ever have been taught that their language, that their culture, that their identity has no value.
Country singer Travis Tritt has canceled shows at various venues across the U.S. that require COVID-19 vaccines, negative tests, or masks. The singer announced on his website that a number of concerts will be canceled at venues requiring COVID-19 mandates in one form or another. Tritt said that any show he booked that discriminates against concertgoers by requiring proof of vaccination, a COVID test, or a mask is being canceled immediately. The 58-year-old singer said he believes there are enough venues across the country that are willing to ignore COVID-19 safety guidelines that he will continue to perform at. Southwest Airlines has scrapped plans to put unvaccinated employees who applied for but did not receive a medical or religious exemption on unpaid leave beginning in December. Southwest and American Airlines are carriers that the Biden administration says are required to have their employees vaccinated against COVID-19 by December the 8th unless they are exempt for medical or religious reasons. Pilot labor unions have also sought to block the mandates or sought alternatives such as regular testing. Company officials say if employee requests for an exemption have not been approved by December 8th, they could continue working while following mask and distancing guidelines. $1 million per life. The Haitian gang that kidnapped 17 members of an American missionary group is demanding a $17 million ransom. The 16 Americans and 1 Canadian were kidnapped on Saturday. A pastor told the Detroit News that the kidnapped group includes 4 children and one of their parents from a Michigan family. A recent wave of kidnappings has prompted a protest strike that closed businesses, schools, and public transportation in Haiti, which is a new blow to the country's already anemic economy. A missionary worker who knows the families of those who were kidnapped says she will continue to pray for both the captives and kidnappers.
Yesterday, when I was fellowshipping with the man and the woman who personally know a number of those hostages and are personally related to them, I was imagining that those men and women who are taken hostage, that they are singing, and that they are just lifting their voices together in joyful praise to God. And I was believing that it was having some positive effect on the men who were keeping them. I will tell you what I would say to them, because my friend and I were praying for them last night that we forgive them and that there's so much love in our hearts toward them. And it is our prayer on their behalf that they would turn from their evil ways and that they would come to the God that we worship, the one God, and that they would receive forgiveness for the evil things they've done.
Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari says Haiti is an unsafe place right now, especially for North Americans.
It's not a safe place to be, as you know. A lot of political disarray, and because of that uncertainty, obviously there's a lot of violence and a lot of gang violence, such as this one. So the gangs are ruling the streets right now. It remains leaderless. And this poor group, I mean, children who had to witness this right after coming out of an orphanage. I mean, they're on a mission to, spread love and to spread, this message of hope, and to have this be what happens to them. They're in our prayers, they're in our thoughts, and a lot of women and children in that group.
Catch the full interview with Lisa Daftari. We'll have the latest on the kidnapping coming up in the second half of our program. Well, we had another cool autumn day in southwestern Alberta, but the mercury should be increasing slightly as the week progresses. Full weather details are coming up. It was so great to see lots of the sunshine again today, but a little bit cool for this time of year. Jeanette Rocher is back with a full look at the weather forecast. Jeanette, we should be returning back to normal temperatures for this time of year by perhaps Wednesday?
Yes, back to average temperatures for this time of year starting Wednesday, but starting Thursday, we're going to be seeing temperatures above average for this time of year into the rest of the week. So not too bad considering what time of year it is. Into this evening, we're looking at a high of, or a low rather, of 0 degrees. Into tomorrow, Wednesday, 13, the high, mix of sun and cloud. We're going to be seeing a southeast wind at about 20 kilometers per hour. Into Thursday, lots of sunshine, 17 the high, also 17 for Friday with a mix of sun and cloud. Into the weekend, Saturday looking at 16 and a high of 15 on Sunday and Monday with partly cloudy skies. So we're certainly seeing temperatures start to get higher as we get later into the week. That is 13, the average temperature for this time of year. Average low for this time of year is 0. 28 was our high temperature back in 1974, and in 1949 we had our chilliest, which was -12. 7:59 is when the sun rose this morning, just before 8 a.m. Our sunset this evening, 6:33, giving us right around 10 and a half hours of daylight. As we look to the west coast tomorrow, we're going to see a little bit more wet conditions, periods of rain in Victoria tomorrow, high of 15, 40% chance of showers in Vancouver, looking at winds of 30 to 50 k, especially closer to the water. Edmonton, lots of sunshine, 13 the high, and Calgary, sunny skies with a high of 10. As we look to the rest of the prairies, lots of sunshine, but we're seeing a single-digit temperatures. 7 in Saskatoon, 6 in Regina, and 7 also in Winnipeg. We're looking at 20 km/h winds for most of those areas as well. A little bit chillier conditions in the prairies. Not so much in central Canada. Look at that temperature for Toronto, 20 degrees, the high, chance of showers there. Mix of sun and cloud in Ottawa, high 17. 17 as well for Montreal with sunny skies. Seeing more rain in the forecast for the east coast as we look to the Maritimes. Fredericton's high 11 degrees. Halifax 13 with a 30% chance of showers and 20 k winds. Same thing for Charlottetown with a high of 14 degrees, though. A little bit more rain expected tomorrow in St. John's as we're seeing 5 to 10 millimeters developing there. 10 degrees the high. And there you have it. That is your forecast.
Low-cost carrier Flair Airlines says the addition of 4 new Boeing 737 MAX jets in the spring will help it expand its route offerings by 33%. The Edmonton-based Flair says the new planes will boost its aircraft count to 16. It says that will allow it to launch service between Toronto and Victoria, also to Comox, BC in the spring. It will also expand to new U.S. destinations, including San Francisco, Nashville, and Denver. That's in addition to 6 new U.S. routes being offered this fall on top of the 18 destinations it currently serves in Canada. Sleep Country Canada Holdings announced a deal to purchase Hush blankets in stages. It says it will acquire 52% of the direct-to-consumer seller of weighted blankets, pillows, sheets, and bed-in-a-box mattresses for $25 million. Sleep Country will buy the remaining stake in annual 16 percentage point increments beginning in March of 2023 at a price based on the business's financial performance. Johnson & Johnson is raising its 2021 profit forecast as its third quarter earnings beat Wall Street expectations. The world's biggest maker of healthcare products says net income climbed 3% to $3.67 billion. A lot of that was due to growing sales of cancer treatment drugs. It says sales of its single-shot COVID-19 vaccine also picked up, coming in at $502 million compared with just $264 million in the first half of 2021. The company said sales of over-the-counter drugs grew 18% globally as more customers bought Tylenol and Motrin, partly for vaccine relief. Apple has unveiled new MacBook Pro models. Now that's the first upgrade to the laptop in 5 years. The new thinner versions use Apple's M1 Pro and M1 Max chips, which the company says are faster than previous models using Intel chips.
This is the all-new, completely redesigned MacBook Pro, and it comes in 2 sizes, a 16-inch model, and for the first time, a compact yet immensely powerful 14-inch model, which shares the same remarkable features and capabilities.
There was so many complaints about the Mac. You know, Mac Pro users were like,
what about us? You forgot about us. And now all of a sudden, Apple's delivering industry-leading performance and efficiency for their pro users with Macs.
The 14-inch model delivers up to 17 hours of video playback, which is 7 additional hours. And the 16-inch model gets up to 21 hours of video playback, which is 10 additional hours and the longest battery life ever on a Mac notebook.
Looks like a pretty good laptop. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 101 points on the day to finish at 20,087. The Dow was up 198 points to 35,457. The S&P 500 was up 33 points to 4520. And the Nasdaq was up 107 points to 15,129. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 52 cents to 82.96 US per barrel. Natural gas was up a dime to 5.09 US. Gold was even at 1769.29 US an ounce, and silver was also even at 23.66 US an ounce. Wheat is at $11.43 per bushel, barley's at $9.14, canola's at $21.22, and corn is at $9.78 per bushel. Live cattle were down 45 cents to $125. Feeder cattle were down 65 cents to $155.10, and lean hogs were down $1.35 to $77.40. The Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 80.87 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Lethbridge has a new mayor. Blaine Hagan, who served as councillor for a couple of terms, beat out rival Bridget Burns and a field of 4 other candidates, taking 43% of the vote. Official results will be made public on Friday. Hagan and the 8 council members will be sworn in on Monday at Lethbridge City Council. A gang in Haiti that kidnapped 17 members of an American missionary group that includes 1 Canadian is demanding a huge ransom to the tune of $17 million. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will have more details for us in just a moment. A Christian aid ministry says children are among a group of 17 missionaries kidnapped in Haiti. The group of 16 U.S. citizens and 1 Canadian includes 5 men, 7 women, and 5 children. Authorities say the 400 Mawozo gang was behind the bus abduction. To talk about this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, do we know yet what these kidnappers really want?
You know, this is a group that's fixated on Catholics and Christians, as they have a history of abductions like this. This particular group had just finished a visit to a local orphanage in the capital city. And remember, Haiti is #1 in the world for abductions. That happens there very, very frequently. And now, more than ever, it's not a safe place to be, as you know. A lot of political disarray, and because of that uncertainty, obviously there's a lot of violence and a lot of gang violence, such as this one. So the gangs are ruling the streets right now. It remains leaderless. And this poor group, I mean, children who had to witness this right after coming out of an orphanage. I mean, they're on a mission to, spread love and to spread, this message of hope, and to have this be what happens to them. They're in our prayers, they're in our thoughts, and a lot of women and children in that group.
Lisa, the investigation into the messy U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan continues, with the Pentagon and the State Department pointing fingers at each other as who's to blame. Lisa, many members of Congress are simply getting frustrated because everyone's blaming everyone else.
Yeah, well, that just tells us one thing, right, Hal? There's a lot of blame because this was awful. I'm glad at least we're getting that message out of here, because if you listen to Jen Psaki out of the White House, if you listen to Joe Biden, if you listen to most of the media outlets in the United States that are left-leaning, you'd think there's nothing wrong with the withdrawal from Afghanistan. But this tells us nobody wants this responsibility to be on their shoulders. When it comes down to individuals, when it comes down to generals and experts who are involved, they are all saying they did not recommend this. They thought it was an awful idea. And now, obviously, they want to wash their hands clean of the responsibility and the mess that was created there. So, yes, we're seeing the Pentagon and the State Department exchanging jabs as to whose fault this was, and perhaps just creating more chaos and less transparency as we're always getting from them, and making it more difficult to really pinpoint what went wrong, why it went wrong, and how we even fix this. Look, when they're talking about how to disseminate aid to the Taliban, meaning the bottom line is that the Taliban will be getting aid from the United States, that means we're on our way to legitimizing this terror organization. And to that end, who cares whose fault it was at this point? It's the fact that we are now going to legitimize a terror organization. We're going to have a huge terror headquarters in the middle of the Middle East after 20 years of treasure that we put there. We have veterans to answer to. We have families to answer to who lost loved ones, and billions of dollars of taxpayer money. So a lot of questions and not enough answers.
So Lisa, how can we be sure that the billions of dollars are actually making its way to the Afghan people instead of the Taliban?
Right, great question. And history proves that when terrorists get money, they put it into more terrorism and not for the people. Look, to a certain extent, the Taliban will keep the lower socioeconomic brackets happy, meaning they'll put up soup kitchens and madrasas. They'll make sure that their fighters are satisfied, whether they're being well fed, they have brides, they have families, and that is how they stay in power, because they keep their constituents happy. For the rest of the people, look at the women, the educated class, people who are involved in the former government and the former military. They will have a very difficult time moving forward in the new Afghanistan run by the Taliban. And the money, yes, you're absolutely right. This is not going to go for, clean energy and all the wonderful things that we believe that in Washington, D.C. will go for in Afghanistan. So it's a really important question, and we shouldn't just be writing the checks. We should be directing the funds as to where they're going.
Lisa, U.S. President Joe Biden and his First Lady Jill Biden were caught violating Washington, D.C.'s indoor mask mandate. They were actually caught walking through a high-end Georgetown restaurant without wearing masks on Saturday. What's the backlash been like so far?
Yeah, well, there's not too many media outlets reporting this. As you know, we have a very hypocritical media here. So there's a few outlets reporting this. And obviously, look, when you double down on something like the masks or the vaccines, you expect those who are in power to follow their own advice. So you don't want Nancy Pelosi going to a hair salon and not wearing a mask. You don't want President Obama and his cronies to have a party with dozens and dozens of people not wearing masks. And you don't want the Bidens at a high-end restaurant when other people, have to go in and show their vaccine card and wear their masks. And, it's baloney, right? We know that it's not keeping us safe when you wear the mask for 2 seconds and walk into a restaurant, then take off your mask when you're sitting, in close proximity to other diners and eating with your mask off. And the point here is that if you can't follow your own advice and your own rules and your own laws, then they shouldn't be there to begin with, right? And I think the American people are fed up to a certain extent. Some people are just following like sheep, but I know a lot of people are upset, particularly, Hal, in big cities. A lot of parents here in California, for example, a lot of parents are very worried about these vaccine mandates for children. And again, are Gavin Newsom's children going to be vaccinated? And are, this person and that person, all these people who are in government and making these laws, are their children going to be vaccinated? Do they truly believe in what they are saying, or is just another way to control the population and to use COVID as a way to, I don't know. It makes no sense to a lot of people. And I think that people want more transparency and they want more from our administration. And I think that the Bidens are they owe the people an explanation as to why this happened.
Iran is meeting with European Union officials in Brussels this Thursday, Lisa, to discuss resuming the Vienna nuclear talks. Now, these are the same talks that were suspended, since June?
Yes. And you know what, Hal? Why were they suspended? Well, it's because they couldn't come to any sort of compromise, A. B, it's become extremely clear that the Iranian regime is marching towards a weapons program and not stopping. The only thing that they've stopped to do is to flex their muscles and to prove to the world that they are only interested in beefing up their program and enriching more uranium and not stopping. Not to even mention their continuation of putting money into terrorism and to fund different terrorist organizations throughout the region, and to, of course, their human rights abuses back at home. Now, why are we going back to the negotiating table with the Iranian regime? I don't know. The mentality here. The logic is, well, they are very close to getting a nuclear bomb, so we have to rush back into a deal with them. That makes absolutely no sense. If they're rushing towards a bomb, this deal, a meaningless piece of paper, will not curb their behavior or their actions towards the weapons program or anything else. We don't know why this administration and the European Union are so, enthusiastic about getting back into an Iran nuclear deal. But there you go. Thursday we'll be back at the negotiating table with them.
Lisa, the deadly clashes that broke out in Beirut, Lebanon last week amounted to a massacre, and a Hezbollah representative says its perpetrators should be held to account.
Yeah, it's funny that the Hezbollah leadership is asking for accountability here. Look, Lebanon has been a mess for a very, very long time. You'd have an economic disaster there. It's been bad and it's gotten worse. You have obviously Hezbollah, its influence growing because you have an absence of political legitimacy there from the ruling class. And because we cannot rid Lebanon of this cancerous influence, which is Hezbollah, again, Hezbollah, a terror proxy that is paid for, supported by, and founded by the Iranian regime, operates in Lebanon and terrorizes the people there. They use that as a launching pad to terrorize Israel. And, the people of Lebanon are truly paying for their presence there. And now when you have attacks like this, Hezbollah, comes out in front and says, we want answers. They did the same thing with the port bombing that happened a little bit over a year ago. They come out in front to have some sort of legitimacy to tell the people that they care for the people, that they want to, that they support them, similar to the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas and the Taliban. All these terror organizations are operating with the same handbook, and that is to show the people, or try to prove to the people, that they care for them and their interests, and they're only there to support the population, which is completely a farce. So we have to rid Lebanon of this threat of Hezbollah in order for there to be a new chapter, a new day, a new future for the people of Lebanon.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because Hezbollah has such a foothold, a stronghold in Lebanon right now, what can we really do in North America to be able to help the people of Lebanon?
Yeah, the only way, and what was working for a long time, is to truly strangle and to choke off the influence of Hezbollah. And that is through sanctions, through direct sanctions that won't affect the people as much as it will affect direct leaders of Hezbollah. For a long time, I was interviewing people that would say in Beirut, they would go to a local market and they would see little charity boxes that Hezbollah puts up. That's how poor they felt. That's how much they felt that the sanctions were affecting them, that they weren't able to maintain, that they weren't able to pay their debt. They weren't able to pay the suicide bombers, for example. So that shows us that works. Now, why this current administration is not as interested in doing that is a separate question, but we know what works. We know that it also worked for the Iranian regime to choke them with very targeted sanctions and to not only sanction sectors, but to sanction individuals. And that works. It works, and it's the best and most diplomatic, since they love that word, diplomatic way of choking off these influences.
Chinese military has condemned Canada and the United States over warships in the Taiwan Strait. Tell me more.
Yeah, how ironic, right, Hal? So if you remember, China spent a few weekends just, pounding that area with their jet fighters just to show that they have that might over Taiwan. They wanted to show their influence. They wanted to show their presence. And now that Canada and the US have stepped up to say, we're going to have our presence here too, China has condemned this, and it deserves a headline, apparently. So the headline is to show that China is paying attention. They have noted that the US and Canada have together escalated the situation with Taiwan. They're not going to just sit back and let this one go. And China's not used to that. They're not used to getting this proverbial slap on the wrist. They're not used to the US and the West, I should say, showing any teeth. And now they're condemning the US and Canada for doing so. So we shall see who's going to make the next move and how this is going to go.
Who's going to blink first? We'll have to wait and see here. Lisa, one of the world's most locked down cities, Melbourne, Australia, will end its stay-at-home orders. The capital of the state of Victoria has had 6 lockdowns totaling 262 days since March of last year.
Yeah, this has been something to follow. I don't know if you've seen any of these clips coming out of Australia with officers actually walking up to people in the park with their mask half down on their face and seeing if there's actually coffee in their cup that would warrant them having their masks down to drink that coffee, that said coffee in the cup. Very sad times, very, very sad times when you have that close of a of a watch on a censorship on people, and people don't like it. People appreciate freedom. It's a very old fact that people appreciate their freedom, and with COVID, we have really blurred the lines of what freedom is versus controlled state. The important thing for a lot of people now is to shake this off before it becomes the new normal, to use their own words. They want to shake it off. In Australia, you saw these deadly protests. There are deadly protests. Imagine being beaten up and thrown into prison because they care for your health and safety because you have to wear a mask. It's extremely sad to see how serious this has gotten, how violent this has gotten. I mean, we're happy for the people of Australia to open up, but this has set a very sad precedent around the world with regards to our liberties being taken away from us, redefining freedoms, redefining all sorts of things, and how much of this will stay going forward.
Yeah, the new normal is not so normal. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Thanks again, Lisa.
My pleasure.
Well, we all probably take our eyesight for granted at times, and today we want to talk about properly caring for our eyes and how to deal with vision problems should they come up. Dr. Mansoor Chowdhury is an optometrist with Visual Effects Eye Clinic here in Lethbridge. He joins me now. Welcome to the show, Dr. Chowdhury. So great to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, let's start with the basics. How often should we be going for an eye exam?
So in our clinic, we generally recommend everyone to come at least every year or two. For kids 18 or under, we recommend every year. Seniors 65 and over every year for sure. And if you're a diabetic, you're actually covered for an eye exam yearly as well. And that's something that I think a lot of people still aren't really aware of. So just important to get everything checked out if you're a diabetic for sure.
Okay, definitely. Now, you also mentioned kids should go every year. At what age should children start going for their first eye checkup?
As early as 6 months is okay. You can bring them in earlier if you want to, if there's any concerns that the parents have, like if you notice an eye being turned in or out are usually common ones, or any concerns at all that might come up, we generally just say, hey, it's better just to bring them in. But we've seen patients as young as 2 months, 1 month, so there's really no age limit there.
Yeah, how do you do an eye exam on such a young little baby?
Well, we hope that they're not too scared, but babies actually aren't as tough, especially if they're sleeping. A lot of people think that the babies need to be awake, but it's almost easier when they're tired because then we can just hold their eyes open and basically get a good look at what's important. Do they have cataracts? Do they have anything going on? But it's usually pretty quick, right? So.
Wow. Now, is it just me, or does it seem like more and more kids are needing glasses these days at an earlier age? Has this increased?
We've noticed some trends of that too. I mean, I think part of it comes from, glasses are cool now, so a lot of kids want them. But I think just with everything being close up and in our face, a lot of near work can lead to you being nearsighted. So overall, though, over the last several years, it's been pretty consistent. But I've heard that too, that we seem to notice more kids requiring glasses or becoming more nearsighted. And I think I was wondering if it's from more,
I was wondering if it was from more and more screen time. We have screens in our face constantly now, so that might be having an adverse effect on our eyes. What's your opinion on that?
It definitely can be, not just from the standpoint of needing glasses, but when you're staring at something up close, you tend to blink less. We're finding blue light isn't that great for our eyes either. And just for kids' sleep cycles too, right? So if they're doing it at night or at odd times throughout the day, it can kind of throw them off their routines.
That's a very good point. Now, other than that, do we know what else might cause eyesight to decrease? I assume age is a factor, but is there anything young people can do to prevent their eyesight from becoming impaired?
Well, overall, the best advice I give all my patients is just trying to be as healthy as we can overall. Um, the more you take care of your body, your eyes tend to follow suit because, well, they're connected too. But an interesting fact for children or kids is getting enough sun exposure. There's been some research into kids that didn't have as much sun exposure were more likely to become nearsighted. And, that's another great way to kind of gently nudge them off their iPads and the close-up stuff, right? So playing outside is, more important than we think, right?
Yeah, exactly. Put down the iPad and go play outside. Go pick up a basketball. It's good for your eyes. That's a good argument that parents can have now. So when we start to have trouble reading the small print, should we be getting bifocals? I know some of us just go get those reading glasses from the drugstore, myself included. Are those okay, or should we be actually getting bifocals?
Well, it really just depends on what's going to work best for you. So with over-the-counter reading glasses, for example, they can work really well for some patients. If you don't mind taking them on and off all the time, because once you have them on, you might be able to see up close, but anything past about an arm's length is going to be pretty blurry. Also, a lot of people, their prescription's different in each eye. So figuring out what prescription might work best for you it'd probably be a good idea to get your eyes checked first. And we could recommend if you need just reading glasses, or if a multifocal lens might be an option for you too. It just depends on what's going to work best for your lifestyle, right? So several factors go into that too.
Yeah.
But
now, do you have any advice for those who wear contact lenses? Sometimes I know infections can happen, or we get really dry eyes.
yeah, the biggest piece of advice I just laugh because I know all our colleagues we have our issues with it, but just following the manufacturer guidelines. So if you have a contact lens you're only supposed to wear for 2 weeks, don't wear it for 2 or 3 months. Don't sleep in your contacts if you're not supposed to. Try to give your eyes a break too. Generally have at least 1 or 2 days per week where you're just in your glasses. And I usually tell my patients not to wear their contacts for any more than 10 to 12 hours a day, just because it is so dry here. And it just helps keep the eyes healthy and reduce the wear and tear.
Yeah, that's great advice. Now, I understand that there is a relatively new development for contact lenses that can actually help stop the progression of nearsightedness in children. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we've had these contacts they've been available for a few years now, but basically to explain how they work is when you're nearsighted, generally your eye is a little bit longer than average. So the light's not hitting the back where you want it to, it falls short. So the idea behind these contact lenses is that it forces the light to fall just a little, almost right at the back of the eye, but it splits it up a bit to go a little bit further ahead. And what this does, long story short, is it helps prevent the growth of the eyeball itself overall, and it can slow down the progression quite a bit.
Wow, that is fascinating. What modern science can do,
it's pretty cool.
It really is. So now, what about multifocal contact lenses? How effective are they compared to glasses with bifocals?
They can be pretty comparable. Again, it just depends on your prescription. If you have a really complicated prescription, it might be a little bit harder to get you fit into multifocal contacts. But that's just something that, sometimes it's trial and error. We try a lens on a patient, see if it works, have them come back in a few weeks, and we just make some tweaks and move on. And hopefully after a couple of visits, we find a lens that's comfortable for them. But I would say it's pretty successful for most patients nowadays.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, in addition to this, of course, there are some very serious eye issues. So cataracts being one of them. What is the cause of that, and at what age do they tend to start? I know you'd mentioned that in infancy, then even you're looking for cataracts. I had no idea an infant can have a cataract. So what's the cause of that?
So with cataracts, generally the number one reason people have cataracts is just due to aging. Everyone's going to get them eventually. It's nothing to be worried about. It doesn't hurt your eye or harm your eye. It just causes us to see blurry. Some patients might develop them younger. For instance, if there's children or infants, it could just be congenital, right? It's something you're born with. If you've had an injury to the eye, sometimes that can induce an earlier cataract. Depending on what medications you're taking, that can sometimes induce cataracts as well. Basically, it's the lens in your eye. It's kind of like the windshield. When the proteins change over time, it just becomes less transparent. And that's when patients start to complain that things are getting a little foggy or their vision's just not as clear as it used to be. They also feel like their glasses are dirty or their vision's just kind of smudgy. And then they come in and, there's a cataract just sitting there. So.
Wow. Now, that can obviously be removed with surgery, and a lot of people are going for cataract surgery. So how much of a process is this, and how successful is it?
It's a fairly simple process. If you get your eyes checked, we notice a cataract, we just refer you to one of our great ophthalmologists in town, or if you want to go to Calgary Medicine Hat, wherever you need to be. And it's a pretty simple process. It's very effective. It's very safe. Cataract surgery has been around for a very long time, and the prognosis is usually very, very good. Patients are usually very happy, and it's not very painful. It's pretty easy to take care of yourself after, as long as you can use some eye drops, but it's a pretty easy process overall.
That's good to know. Now, what about glaucoma? This is another one that we hear about. So can you explain what this is and what the cause is?
With glaucoma, we're not too sure exactly what causes it. It's basically a progressive degeneration of your optic nerve. And the biggest risk factor we find that most people can relate to is high eye pressures. Once upon a time, high eye pressures meant you had glaucoma, whereas now, of course, we understand there's several factors that can cue us into diagnosing that or not. But the simplest explanation is just your optic nerve that progressively degenerates over time. And the cause, sometimes it can be induced. If you had an injury that increases your pressure, or other physical factors of your anatomy that might make you more prone to it. But overall, it can be linked to family history as well.
So what kinds of treatments then are available for glaucoma?
Most of the treatments are geared towards lowering the intraocular eye pressure. So commonly first line is either eye drops, of different prescription eye drops we can use. And what's becoming more popular also in first line treatment is minor surgeries that can help alleviate the pressure too. So some of our patients that just don't like using eye drops or can't get behind that idea or won't be compliant with that, we sometimes think minor surgery might be a better option for them.
Okay. Now, you hear a lot of people who are bothered by floaters in the eyes. So what is this? What causes it? Can it be serious?
So floaters can be serious if they're something new, if you're noticing more of them, or you're noticing flashes of light or anything odd in your vision. We generally ask patients to come in the same day. Even if you're unsure, it's better just to be on the safe side and get into a local optometrist to have them take a look at the back of the eye. What floaters are is the very back of our eye, there's a kind of a jelly-like substance called the vitreous, and pieces of that can break off or clump together and basically cast shadows in the back of the eye, which is what you see. So when you move your eyes left to right, it's kind of like shaking a snow globe, except instead of having multiple snowflakes, it's just one or two or little chunks. But generally they're not very harmful. But again, if they're new and you're noticing more of them or anything different, it's best just to have your eyes checked.
Yeah, that actually sounds way more serious now that you explained what it actually is. I've never had it explained like that. I had no idea. So thank you for the education there. Now, more and more people these days are going for laser eye surgery. So how successful is this? How long does it last? Are you basically cured forever? Do you have to go back again in the future?
That's a great question. I've actually had laser eye surgery myself. I used to be really nearsighted. And the different types you can get, there's certain ones that they'll actually warranty for a few years, but there's certain procedures that'll warranty forever too. So if it starts to change or if your prescription starts to regress, then they can do a minor touch up. But again, everyone's different, right? It's individual. Some people have had it for decades and haven't noticed a change. Some people had it for a few years and they noticed that it was starting to regress as well. But for the most part, if you have a really high prescription and you get laser surgery done, it probably won't ever go back to bad as it originally was. Like you might need glasses again to see far away, but and they're always improving it too, right? So it's very individual, but for the most part, it's quite successful.
Okay, so we sometimes hear about these poor outcomes with laser eye surgery. So do you have any like cautions for people considering having the surgery done?
Just follow your surgeon's guidelines. You know, they're going to give you a schedule of drops and changes in your routine to undergo, and just follow them strictly. So, I mean, they're your eyes. You just paid a bunch of money to get this surgery done. So I think it'd be kind of silly to not just listen to the experts into what's going to give you the best results. And if you notice anything that's concerning again, whether it's after day 1 to week 1 or 2, just either contact them or contact your local optometrist so they can make sure it's nothing too serious.
Great advice. Thanks so much for being with us today, Dr. Chaudhry. So glad to have you on today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Dr. Mansoor Chaudhry is an optometrist with Visual Effects Eye Clinic in Lethbridge. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.